It's time to do part 2 of the prediction video for the MLSisback tournament, as I'm going to be predicting the standings for both Group D, E, and F. And we are 3 days away from the first game to be kicked off in the tournament. And throughout this weekend, there hasn't really been any news that talks about whether this tournament is going to be either delayed or postponed or being scrapped altogether. And the only relevant news we have heard is that one of the match, which is the match between FC Dallas and the Whitecaps, is going to be postponed to a later date. But other than that, I think since we are getting so close to the tournament about to begin, I would be really surprised that MLS is going to say that they are going to pull the plug into this tournament, and that I really think there's really no turning back right now. Like, there's just so much momentum that MLS has gathered into, and that there's just so much promo that has got into this tournament. I would be very surprised that they decided to pull the plug with just a couple of days left in this tournament. And whether you like it or not, the first game is going to kick off in about 3 days' time. But before that, as we're going to do in this video, I am going to be finished off with the prediction of these group. And we start off with Group D, which is a group that I call the Group of Death. And this group, of course, involved the teams being Sporting KC, Real Salt Lake, Minnesota United, and Colorado Rapids. And at first place, I am going to say Sporting KC. Now, if I would have done this prediction video probably back on Thursday or maybe even last week, I would have put Minnesota in first place. The only reason why I'm not putting Minnesota in first place right now is what we heard from this past weekend, that Iko Parr unfortunately will not be participating in this tournament due to an injury that he has sustained, and that, I'm just really hoping that he can be back on this Loons team after this tournament is over, because he is a crucial player on our team, not just in terms of the back line, but also going forward in terms of scoring those goals on the set piece. And because we're missing that big of a piece, I just think that really puts my pecking order in terms of where the Loons are going to finish. And to take over them, I'm going to say Sporting KC is going to do that. The first two games, they have looked very impressive and look like a team that wants to kind of forget what happened last year. Like, I'm pretty sure Peter Vermes does not want to think about what happened last year with this team missing the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, and that this year they want to prove people that they are back and they are ready to challenge in the Western Conference. Now, my one big concern with Sporting KC is that these first two games, yes, they have looked dominant, but the problem is they play against two of the most easiest team in the Western Conference, in the Vancouver Whitecaps and the Houston Dynamo. And that I always say that, yes, they of course were able to show their dominance in the first two games, but now they're going to be facing real opposition. And it's going to be interesting to see how, when they do face against real opposition, are they going to look as dominant as they were in the first two games. And I think they are going to do it, because I really love that attack. And also, I'm a little bit skeptical about the defense, but I think that attack should score enough goals where, even with a defense that is a little bit shaky at times, I think it should be enough to power them to get first spot in Group D. And keep in mind, because of the fact that I called this the Group of Death, and because I know there's a lot of good team out of this group, I won't be surprised if any of these teams that I mentioned, even the fourth place team, I won't be surprised if they're going to completely prove me wrong and that they're going to actually get first place, because this group is very, very competitive, and that if you do not get off to a good start in this group, you are in deep trouble in terms of trying to move on into the next round. But now, heading into second place, I'm going to say the Colorado Rapids that is going to be finished in second place. Now, as long as if the Rapids can continue to score set piece goals, and as long if Jack Price continue to be the master of set pieces, and Kai Kamara continue to head it in like he always does from the end of a set piece, this Rapids team is going to be a very, very dangerous team. And that in the first two games, they have shown what they are capable of, and they have really carried off that momentum that they had in the second half of the season. Plus, I really like Robin Fraser as a head coach, and I think he's going to do a good thing with this Rapids team. I think they could definitely finish second in this group, but as I said, like Sporting KC, the Rapids, in the first two games, I would say they have faced a little bit tougher opponent than what Sporting KC has faced. They had to go on the road against DC, and we know Colorado in the past does not have a good road record, and that it was pretty impressive. They were able to pull off a big win against DC, and then of course they pulled off a victory against Orlando City in the second game at home. But still, I think like Sporting KC, they definitely have a very decent attack and also a probably even a better defense than what Sporting KC had. So it'll be interesting to see if that's going to be something that will get them maybe the top spot in this group, but I think there's a big chance that they could potentially move on into the next round. Now in third place, I'm going to put a star on it, which means that this is one of my best third place team that I'm picking to move on, and that is Minnesota United. And again, losing Ike Opara is definitely very disappointing, but at least the good news about that is that he doesn't have to go through this gauntlet of potentially getting a positive case while playing in this tournament. And yes, I'm gonna call this tournament a gauntlet for all these players that is going to be involving in, because there's going to be a lot of risks for all these players that is playing in this tournament, and I won't be surprised that some of the most well-known players that participate in this tournament either decide to opt out because of the risk that is involved, or at the worst case scenario, when they do play in this tournament, at some point they're going to probably get this virus and unfortunately will not be available for the remaining of the tournament. But yeah, losing Ike Opara is definitely painful, and that he is just such a leader of this Loons team. And for the past for last season, I really think he was clearly the MVP of this team, because not only the fact that he was a rock in that back line, was just the leader in that back line to really keep this defense together. But going forward, he shows that he can definitely be very dangerous in the set piece, and especially in the last game against the Quakes, where I actually witnessed firsthand that he of course scored 2 goals from a header, and that now that he's not going to be available for this team, that's going to be a missing ingredient for this Loons team. But the reason why I'm still thinking that the Loons will move on is that I'm hoping the attack will kind of carry a little bit of the thinness that is going on in the defense. Like, I know for a fact that the Loons are probably going to give up goals, knowing the fact that now our defense is going to be significantly weaker without Ike Opara. But I'm just hoping that guys like Jan Gregush, Ethan Finley, and even Luis Amarilla, who's said that he promised he's going to score 25 goals this season. He's already got off to a great start, scoring 2 goals. He's going to continue to produce in this tournament, and that the Loons will just get by the next round, despite the fact that they are not going to have their talent leader in Ike Opara in this team. Now in fourth place, and again, because this group is so competitive, that I feel like whoever missed out in terms of going through the next round, they were in another group, I think they would have moved on. And I would say the same with RSL, where I really think if they were in another group, they can definitely move on into the next round. But, the reason why I put RSL in last place is that I definitely have some uncertainty about this team with the way that, going forward on the attack, I do have a little bit uncertainty of who exactly is going to score the goals and who exactly is going to be the striker for this team, because, Savarino, he's no longer with the team, and that you wonder who exactly is going to step up into that role. I mean, I have heard some people say that maybe Krylak should potentially play in that number 9 position. Yeah, they could, but is it actually going to work out? I have no idea how it is. And also, let's not forget the back line. It could be at times look very shaky, and that since they're in such a tough group like that, and I know in the past, usually they prove people wrong by saying that, even though we don't have a squad that looks very, very competitive, our chemistry, of course, would eventually pull us through the next round, and we'll always find ways to get to the next round. But now that chemistry level is going to be really tested against these very good teams, because I just think there's going to be a point where quality eventually is going to outshine itself, and that this could maybe be the case where, unfortunately, the quality of these three teams is going to really shine against RSL, and that, unfortunately, RSL will be a team that will miss out in this group to move on into the next round. But don't be surprised that I'm going to be proven wrong, and I'm going to get people in the comment section that's going to hate me for putting RSL in 4th place. But I'm also going to say that I won't be surprised if RSL move on, and that I won't be surprised they prove me completely wrong, where once again the strong chemistry of this team is going to find a way to get them into the next round of this tournament. But now moving on into Group E, and this is the group where it involves the likes of Atlanta United, Columbus Crew, FC Cincinnati, and the New York Red Bulls. And at first place, I know Atlanta fans going to hate me for putting them not in this spot, but I really think Columbus is going to finish top of the group. And, you know, Columbus, when you look at the starting 11 and you just look at all the team in this group, I think if there is one team that I generally trust in terms of the starting 11 that I think can do good things and could definitely get them move on into the next round of this tournament, it is the Columbus Crew. I mean, their attack is very decent with the likes of Jarzy Zardes, Pedro Santos, and the newly acquisition Lucas Zelerian, and you know the midfield also is very decent. I also like the fact that they now got Darlington Nagbe, and he's going to do some good thing in the midfield, and also the backline is very solid too. And that I just think this starting 11 is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the strongest starting 11 out of this group. Probably even stronger than what Atlanta United does have. I mean, I know Atlanta does have some very decent player, but obviously that missing ingredient with Joseph Martinez, who really is like the heart and soul of the team. Like, I think if I would say Ike Opara is the heart and soul for Minnesota, I would also say the same thing about Joseph Martinez with Atlanta. Like, he is the guy that basically carries the team and scored the goals for them. And without him, you know, you already saw how Atlanta, yes, they got off to a great start to the season, their first 2 wins, but they definitely didn't look very dominant in their first 2 wins, and at times they look very shaky. And let's also not to mention the fact that they faced 2 very easy opponents in the first 2 games in Nashville and FC Cincinnati. So yeah, I just think Columbus is going to be the team that overall is going to top this group. But speaking of Atlanta, I'm going to put them in second. You know, obviously, I know if I don't put Atlanta in second or decide not to give Atlanta United the spot to move on to the round of 16, a lot of Atlanta fans are going to hate me and say that I'm just biased because I hate this team so much. And yes, this is my most hated team in the league, but that also doesn't mean the fact that I am going to be biased in this prediction and say that my most disliked team should not be moving on into the next round. And hence, that's also why I'm wearing this gray kind of shirt, because I don't want to wear any team shirt whenever I do a prediction, in case if it's going to use it as a way to probably jinx a team heading into the tournament. But going back to this, Atlanta, obviously I think they're going to finish second because, you know, again, losing Joseph Martinez and not having him in this tournament is going to be big, but I think they'll still move on into the next round, and that, you know, they definitely have a very good defense that can definitely hold up, and that it could make up for a little bit of a problem that they have going for on the attack, and that they don't really have a lot of players that can, of course, score goals. But that's also where Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez come into the picture. Like, you know, these 2 guys, they really need to step up in this game, and they really need to be those 2 guys that is going to be scoring the goal and creating for Atlanta. Because if they're not going to do that, then Atlanta could be in trouble heading into this tournament. So, yeah, we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the case. But as I'm now going to put the 3rd place team, and I'm also going to put a star to it, which means that this team will also move on as the best 3rd place team. And call me crazy, but I really think FC Cincinnati could actually move on into the next round. And this is actually not just a crazy prediction, but also a very bold prediction, because FC Cincinnati, I think besides the Chicago Fire in this tournament, they are a very unknown team heading into this tournament. Like, I just, like, heading into this tournament, they have a new coach in Yap Stam, and he hasn't really played any, he hasn't even coached this team in a competitive game, so we have no idea what kind of style he is going to use. And maybe in some way that could actually be in favor of FC Cincinnati, since I think all these teams, they probably have no read of how FC Cincinnati is going to play and what Yapstam is going to play. That could definitely give FC Cincinnati a advantage to try to throw off team a little bit in the beginning. But at the same time, since you have a coach that we don't exactly know what he's going to do, and also you have a bunch of players that they basically signed this offseason to try to repair the damage of what happened in the first season. That was an absolute tire fire. We just don't know what's going to happen with FC Cincinnati. Like, there is a lot of question in terms of the attack. Will Jurgen Lecadia, who just got that loan extension, will he actually be producing goals just as he says he's probably going to do, and that he want to stay with the club? Will that midfield be very stable? And most importantly, that defense. Can it be a defense that I wouldn't say it needs to be massively improved from last season, but just not be a defense that concedes 75 goals last season? Because if that defense is going to be like the 75 goals conceded heading in last season, heading into this tournament, yeah, they just have no chance whatsoever heading into this tournament. So I'm betting this is, despite the fact that there's a lot of unknown quality, I'm betting the fact that maybe that unknown quality can give FC Cincinnati an advantage and throwing off some of these teams. And I'm really betting that eventually that unknown quality will actually turn out good, and that they're going to be moving on into the next round of this MLSisback tournament. But now, heading into fourth place, and unfortunately the team that is going to miss out is going to be the New York Red Bulls. Yeah, the Red Bulls, this offseason has been very rough for them. I mean, they lost some of their key players, and really, I think the Red Bulls heading into this season is a transition season. Like, they lost a lot of key pieces. One of them is Kamar Lawrence, and they also lost Luis Robles, who at times last year did really stole a couple of games and made some key save to actually win them game. Well, now the fact that he is no longer there, that's going to be a thing that unfortunately will not help them heading into this season and heading into this tournament. And let's also not forget that they no longer have Josh Sims after his loan was not extended, and that he's now going back to Southampton. So you lose some creativity there in the midfield too. And then going forward on the attack, unless if Brian White can have another breakout year and stay off the IR table like he didn't quite do last season. Well, he did score some goals, but he had trouble in terms of staying off the IR table. You just don't know how this Red Bulls team is going to do in this tournament, and that again, I just think this is a transitional year for them, where they're trying to bring in some of those players from their academy, and that they kind of just try to retool and in some way try to rebuild for the future, and trying to create a core that they of course can be competitive heading into this next couple of seasons. But for this to happen, as I said, they need to kind of rebuild a little bit, and that is really the reason why whenever you're having a rebuild season and heading into a tournament, unless if everything goes right with you, I just don't think they're going to move on into the next round. But now moving forward into the last group, which many people call this the group of death, and at first place, I'm going to put LAFC. Now, a couple of weeks back, I would definitely put LAFC in first place, without a doubt. And I wouldn't have to make a lot of explanation of why I put LAFC in first place, because they're the best team in the league. Like, they have the best squad in the league, and that they are really the team to beat. And unless if they face Seattle at any point of the tournament, it's going to be incredibly hard to bet against LAFC of potentially winning this tournament. Now, recently, we have heard a lot of report that Carlos Vela is going to opt out of this tournament, And if that is going to be the case, and that LAFC does not have Carlos Vela, that definitely does make things a little bit more interesting, not only in Group F, but also in this tournament-wise, because, Carlos Vela, just like what I said about Atlanta with Joseph Martinez and Minnesota with Iko Para, he is really the heart and soul of this team, and it's not very often we've seen LAFC without Carlos Vela, so this will be very interesting to see how they will do in terms of potentially not having him for this tournament. But even so, I think they should still have enough talent going forward. Like, I think Diamande or Rossi most likely will take his number 9 spot. And that this could also be a good chance for Brian Rodriguez to kind of finally show up his potential. Like, he's been a huge disappointment ever since he has joined this team, and that it's hard to believe that I don't think he had scored a goal with this team, and yet he occupies the 3rd DP spot for this LAFC. So he needs to really show up and prove that why when LAFC paid him DP money that he's actually worth up there. Otherwise, I think the midfield is decent enough, and that the defense also should be decent enough where they can, of course, finish first. But even if they do move on into the next round, I don't think a lot of people will say that they are going to be the tournament flavor or a tournament favorite just because the fact that Carlos Vela is not going to be on this team. And unless if they can play just as good as they play with Carlos Vela, there is definitely a lot of doubt of how LAFC is going to do heading into this tournament. Yeah, in second place, and this is a little bit of a gamble, and I'm going to say it's the Portland Timbers as the team that is going to be moving on into the next round as the second place team in Group F. And the reason why I say this is a gamble is because they have not looked good at all in the first 2 games. I mean, in the first game, they got absolutely burned by Minnesota on the counter and lost 3-1. And then in the second game, they barely hold on to a 1-0 victory against Nashville. And that was really the game where if only Nashville has a goal scored, or if they face any other team that has a goal scored, I think 99% of the chance that they are probably going to lose that game, and that they could have easily sitting into this tournament with 0 points heading into it. So the reason why I still put them in second is that I'm hoping Savarese have learned from what happened in these first 2 games, and I really hope he learned from not just these first 2 games, but going back to last season, where one of the reasons why the Timbers really struggled last season is that they just cannot break teams down. Like, I understand that Savarese loves to counterattack, and that this is really the way that they love to basically win games, which is just kind of counterattack and wait for a team to kind of overly commit and trying to counterattack to score goals. But it just gets to a point where they use that tactic so much that teams started to figure out that, as long as if we just sit back and ask if the Portland Timbers can break us down, that would be a successful recipe to eventually get points against the Timbers. And it happened. It worked multiple times last season where you see teams just over and over again just kind of sit deep and ask the Timbers to try to break them down, and the Timbers could not quite do that. So hopefully I think Savarese will figure things out, that now that the Timbers can actually do something that they struggle so much, which is break team down. And they definitely have some good attacking pieces going forward that can definitely break team down. But it's just a question of can they, of course, do it heading into this tournament. Because if they can do it, then I think they could finish second or even maybe finish first place depending on how they do against LAFC. But if they can't do it, I think they could most likely fall out of this top 2 and not make it to the next round. But that being said, heading into third place is going to be the Houston Dynamo. And I really think if the Timbers cannot break teams down, the Dynamo might be the one that actually will be representing either as the second place team or even surprise a lot of people finish top in this Group F. Like, I know a lot of people have already written off the Dynamo after they saw this draw, and that they know that they probably are going to be the punching bag of this group. But hear me out, despite the fact that the Dynamo are kind of going to a little bit of a rebuilding situation, I really think that this team is still very talented, and that especially going forward on the attack, they look very, very good. I mean, you've got two former Loons player in Darwin Quintero and Christian Ramirez. And let's not forget that Albert Feliz and Mauro Manotas, surprisingly, they're still there for the Dynamo. So they can definitely add some 1-2 punch going forward. And you know that I would really love to see the Elise and Manotas connection work once again in this tournament. I think the reason why people might have written them off is because of the question in terms of the midfield, and especially the question in terms of the back line that has looked very shaky. And when you're facing against a team that has very good attack, it's no wonder why a lot of people think that the Dynamo could potentially be in serious trouble with the way that their back line looks very, very weak. But still, I think if this team could be a team that could surprise a lot of people, and especially the fact that, we've seen it before, even in a tournament or in the World Cup, where you see teams that gets right off so early because they're in the group of death, and then we have seen times where they can somehow surprise a lot of their team that were supposed to be heavy favorites of going through to the next round, and that those teams that got written off were able to move on into the next round. And just something tells me the Dynamo could potentially do that. And I think one more thing that I can definitely convince the fact that the Dynamo could potentially move on into the next round is the weather. Like, Orlando is a weather climate in the summer very similar to Houston, where it's hot and very humid. These players definitely know how to play in those weather, and it's probably the reason why they have one of the best home record for the past couple of seasons, because teams just cannot deal with the hot and humid weather in Houston. So this would be very similar kind of environment for them to deal with, and that could really be kind of almost a home field advantage for them, even though they're not playing at home in this tournament. But in fourth place, finishing fourth place, is going to be the LA Galaxy. And, I know Galaxy fans are going to hate me by saying that they're not going to be moving on, but I think in recent days, I think they might understand why I decided to put them in fourth place, and that really the way that I will just kind of shorten my explanation of why they're not going to be moving on, and not really go too deep in detail, and just once again beat the dead horse over and over again by talking about their defense being very sketchy, is Jonathan Dos Santos. He's not going to be in this tournament. And once he's not going to be in this tournament, where I really think that he is really the heart and soul of this team and the creative player that will feed the ball to Chicharito, yeah, I just don't know what other option they have going forward on the attack. Like, again, as I said, I think back in the news of the week, unless if Chicharito somehow, in some way, all of a sudden can become a player that can take on defender, and if Pavone can do the same role that Jonathan Dos Santos can do, and that is feed the ball to Chicharito, or continue to score crazy goals like he did against the Dynamo, I just don't see any chance the Galaxy is going to be moving on. Like, not only now they're weak in the defense, but they're also weak on the attack, and when you're weak in both departments like this, there is no way in the world you're going to be a good team whatsoever. So, yeah, I think the Galaxy, since they're just so thin in terms of their roster and the talent-wise, I find it hard for them to see them get through this group, and especially playing against very tough team in this group of death. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the prediction for Group D, E, and F. And as always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this, and have I got it wrong in terms of this prediction, and have I got wrong in terms of putting your team either making to the next round or missing out in the next round. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.